Alright, hello, welcome back. So, today what I'll be sharing with is going to be something that is quite abstract in nature, and even right now, I have no clear indication of how to actually explain or even categorize the thing that I'm about to share, right? But hopefully, the title that I'll come up with in the future will make sense. But what I'm going to share is generally the idea of how human beings actually, in some sense, the internal process of a human being, right? Think of the things that I shared off to this nature in the past. I shared about mirroring and how mirroring works. I shared about power, but again, there is even a deeper layer of this, and this particular deeper layer is what I'm going to try to address and try to explain. And you can say that to a certain extent, this video will also cover a little bit about power, a little bit more in depth of okay, how does power actually work, and how do people perceive power to a certain extent, right? Is this person more powerful than me, or is this person less powerful than me? What is power actually? Of course, I'm not going to go in depth into that, but this is because of how the internal processes work. If you understand this, then this will influence power. So therefore, this will cover a little bit of power. This will also cover a little bit about attraction, because the weird thing is it also ties into attraction, right? Even though you can say that power and attraction differs from each other in the sense of power wants to, when you're utilizing power, you want to, in some sense, traditional power, I'm meaning traditional power in this sense, right? What we want to do is that we want to actually push other people's buttons. In some sense, you want to push other people away, right? The whole idea is that the more that I can push you around, the better, that the stronger I seem when it comes down to measuring up to each other when it comes down to power. But yet at the same time, when it comes to attraction, it's the whole idea of I want to pull you towards me, if it makes sense, right? So perhaps I'll just try to explain first, and then we'll see how it goes. So now again, what do I mean when I shared all of those things, right? In the start of the video. At the start of the video, what do I actually mean when it comes down to it? To me, the human process works like this, right? So this is just again a recap. This should be quite familiar because I touched on this in another videos prior. Okay, is that when human beings we want to make a certain decision, what tends to do is that we have a inherent feeling, right? And it's through these feelings it goes into our dictionary, and then from our dictionary, then it comes down to a word that we can understand, or a phrase, or an image that we can understand. And it's only through these words, phrase, and image that allows us to make decision based on thinking or feelings. You can even say that there's actually an additional step, but this step is optional, which is people process the image to try to understand the image even more. So you can say that the dictionary is not purely just dictionary in the sense of how we understand the word dictionary, right? Dictionary, within our internal dictionary, also stores all our life experiences, the lessons, the things that we understand. So you can say that this is our collective knowledge. And to a certain extent, you can say that our collective knowledge can be considered a library. So it's not so much of a dictionary, but it's more of a library. But of course, clearly when I first explained this, I can't use the term library, right? Because the understanding is, okay, how do we translate words? It's easier for me to use dictionary. So you can say that, well, now that I'm explaining something in a broader context, it's no longer the whole idea of how do we understand the words coming out of each other's mouth and what is the internal process. You can say that now the clearer picture, when I mean that when we get a sensation, we translate it towards something. The translator more or less is actually the library of our life experiences. So this optional steps over here is the general idea of, okay, I got this phrase, I got this phrase, I got this word, I got this image. What does this actually mean? So we'll use this to actually generate within our compare against the thing that we understand. And we process until that, okay, maybe this is what I mean. And you can say that even in this step, right, the thinking process will probably be utilized because again, you are trying to make a conscious deduction of, okay, what does this actually mean? So if I have this feeling, if I'm angry at somebody, then like, okay, what does it actually mean? What is the reason of my anger? And again, this is a phrase that I shared in the past, which is the idea of rationalization, right? Rationalization. And the whole idea of rationalization is that we are using a thinking function on something that is fundamentally feelings in nature. And you can say that all of this is actually feelings, even though it's a word, it's a phrase or image, it's unprocessed information. So of course, this whole framework, or you can say that process, is based on what I shared previously, right? So this is more of a recap, but generally, if I were to go into more details, or rather if I were to want to share more in depth about what the internal process is, I would say that there's actually a level of unconscious, and then there's a level of subconscious, and then there's the level of conscious. Did I spell conscious correctly? Okay, I think so. So these three can be you can think of this as a form of supply chain, right? Information goes towards this direction, and at the level of the unconscious, you can say that all we have is a sensation. Remember from the first video, I used green in color as just an example of illustrating how different emotion feels. So you can say that when we feel internally in our unconscious is actually not based on color. I'm just using color so that our conscious mind is able to understand it to a certain extent. You can just think of the feeling, right, in this level is just sensation. Sensation. So on the unconscious level, generally what we tend to do is that we feel a certain stimulus about something in general, right? It's just that we have this feeling. You can say that pain to a certain extent is like this, right? But the general idea that you need to understand, or again, because this is so abstract, right, is that, well, we feel certain something. What is this certain something? We have no idea yet, but it's just the idea of, okay, I feel something. And this feeling, to a certain extent, you can say that can be felt, although the process is mental in general. So you can say that it's not really like objective physical pain, right? Such as like you pinching yourself. But the process can be felt internally, almost as if you feel the same level of pain, if it makes sense, right? So it's something that to a certain extent you can say that, like, yeah, I feel that sensation. Again, because this is so abstract, I find it hard to actually put it into actual words, right? But generally, just think in terms of, we start off at the unconscious, and it's only through the unconscious that we pass it into our subconscious. So this is the level where you can say that we start to cross over to our library to actually translate this sensation into something, right? Something that we can sort of understand. Within our library, what comes first, right? Again, you can say that the way that I actually see these processes is not a linear way. And I don't think that a human being works in a linear way. I think that to a certain extent, multiple things at different steps of the thought process can actually influence, right? So because what I'm trying to get at is that by right, the conscious mind is going to control the thinking, and the subconscious controls the feeling. But you can say that at the level of, if I'm trying to process this this idea, right, I need to utilize a little bit of thinking, although this thinking is not going to be conscious thinking, right? But the whole idea is that I have to instill a certain amount of rationality, and you can say that our feeling is able to instill a certain level of rationality, right? And this is only from this rationality that we can pass through from the unconscious to the subconscious level. I know that this sounds very confusing, because I would say that a lot of these processes, whenever we talk about things that is subconscious in nature, it becomes very abstract. Mainly because of this one rule, which is if you are able to consciously think about all these processes, it ceases to be a subconscious thought, because that becomes a conscious thought, right? So the thing that we are sharing about right now is more of the idea of, okay, before this became a conscious thought, before the whole idea of, even if I use the example of, okay, I like this girl, right? I like this girl is a conscious thought. But before this conscious thought, you can say that underlying it is certain feeling and emotion that allows us to conclude to the conscious statement of I like this girl. And you can say that the whole idea of this whole process is to think and ponder about, okay, what does this actually mean? And how do I know that I like this girl? Then you can say that, well, before you like this girl, probably the feeling that you feel is infatuation, love to a certain extent. So again, we are here at feelings, right? Because here is that I like this girl, and here is that, I feel infatuated. And then now at this unconscious level is that the unconscious level is basically you seeing her for the first time, and certain emotion swells up within you. You don't know what this emotion means. For all you know, when we look at somebody, we get a swell of emotion. The feeling can be anything in nature, right? I could look at you because, well, I actually feel disgust. I could look at you because, well, I feel angry about you, right? There's something about the thing that you wear, something about the things that you own, or even the way that you walk, you carry yourself, you might remind me of another person that I don't like. So again, when it comes down to feeling, right, this is also the whole idea of association. This is how human beings actually make context, and how we actually learn to a certain extent, right? We tend to associate things. And it's because of all these things, then you can say that it's only at the feeling level that we start to figure out, okay, what do we actually feel about this? And you can say that in order for us to understand, okay, is this going to be infatuation? Is this going to be anger? Is this going to be disgust? Our subconscious mind have to utilize a little bit of thinking. Because again, in order the sorting criteria to change like a random feeling into one of these three have to come from the idea of rationalization. And again, rationalization is, again, we're using thinking and some form of logic. Again, the rationalization, right, don't have to be true. It just have to be rational. So truth and rationality, of course, you can say that a rational person always aims to get the utmost truth, but rationality and truth is actually not in the same statement. You can have a very logical equation, and you can follow the equation correctly to a certain extent, but if certain information within your equation is wrong, your conclusion is going to be wrong. But because you are following a logical flow of equation, you can say that thought process is rational, but that thought process is not true. So this is, in some sense, you can say that what is this missing criteria, right? The wrong answer and everything. It could be assumptions. So you can say that if we make a rational decision based on wrong assumption, we are going to get the wrong results. So, which is why when our subconscious utilize thinking to put forth, okay, this sensation that you're feeling is likely going to be infatuation, or this sensation is likely going to be anger or disgust, etc., it doesn't necessarily mean that is the truth. In some case, you can say that that's why the concept of framing exists, right? The concept of framing is just how we perceive a certain event. If I'm interacting with this person and we are jokingly teasing each other, there is two possible frames. One is that I tease you because I hate you. Then another one is that I tease you because I want to make things lighter and fun, because I actually want to bond with you, right? I want both of us to have a good time. Then again, you can say that teasing, if I understand teasing the wrong way, then I could accidentally offend this person. So you can say that at this level, right, we're not talking in terms of accuracy, because accuracy is something that the conscious mind actually think about. So I have to move on from, I can't keep dwelling on this thing, right? But the whole idea is that the step process is from a sensation into subconscious, where now we are going into the different categories of emotion, right? if you want to understand power, which by the way, this lesson is not going to go into the realm of how subconscious go into the conscious, because actually that is very very simple, right? It's just as simple as me thinking of the idea of, okay, I feel angry right now. Why do I feel angry? Then you can say that is when you passing your subconscious into the conscious mind. Whatever decisions that you come up with of why you are angry doesn't really matter. Okay, because now the conscious mind is quite, in some sense you can say that the conscious mind don't really have that much control over the human animal as much as us, the conscious mind, want to think about it. You can say that when we think of the conscious mind, this is us ourselves sitting here thinking and processing information, or when we are calculating an equation. You can say that largely what we deem to be us in that moment is our conscious mind, because we make decision. But the human animal, in some sense, I think that there are pictures of icebergs, right? Which is like, this is your conscious mind, and then below the surface is your subconscious mind, which controls so many things. And I truly believe that this is the case, because your subconscious controls so much internal process. You feel a certain sensation and tells you that, okay, this sensation is anger. And you can say that you make decision based on this sensation that you feel. So again, this is a very like weird and abstract way to actually think about it, right? But the whole idea is that if you want to understand concepts such as power and the power and attraction, you actually do not need to understand so much about the conscious mind. Because the mistake that I feel, and I know that I'm detouring, right? I should actually go back to actually explaining this thing, but I need to actually settle this this detour, is that for human being, we put too much emphasis on our conscious mind when it comes down to attraction or power. So what do I mean by this? If you have the thought of, okay, what should I do? What should I say? What should I do? What should I say to make somebody feel like I'm the most interesting person in the world? Then I would say that you basically have a little bit of misunderstanding of how love and affection works at this level. Because words such as do, what can I do? What can I say? Right? Are words associated with logistics. And logistics is a subset of thinking. When we are trying to think in terms of how do I change somebody's behavior, alright, the only way logistics would work is the logistics of something that affects their feelings. So if I use the phrase of, in order for me to change the way that you behave, I use the words of, if you don't do this, I am going to cut your pay. You are not going to do it because of the logistical reason. You are going to do it because of the feelings. Because if I cut your pay, what does it actually mean? It means that I can't buy the things that I want. Again, when it comes down to attraction, what we are always doing is things that affects us at a subconscious level. The things that we want, the things that we desire. So, which is why if you think in terms of like, what can I do when it comes down to attracting a girl, it's the wrong way of thinking already, right? What you should do is that you should actually focus on the subconscious. Understand your feeling, how your feelings make you take certain action, and once you understand this, understand that other people's feelings is going to work more or less the same way, and you do the things that will affect them. Again, there's also a caveat here, right? Which is, there is no two human being that works the same internally. One of the worst human bias is that because I think and feel in a certain way, another person is going to do the same thing. Because I'm a upstanding, moral, and principled human being, and I will never lie and I will never cheat, I assume everybody that I'm dealing with is going to have the same idea, which is not going to be the case. But the whole idea is that beyond just things such as morality, principles, the internal process, the thing that I'm sharing over here, is going to be the same for everybody, by and large, right? With small amount of differences here and there. But by the way, I spent a little bit too long on conscious mind than I would like to from a detour. So we are going back to the subconscious mind, right? Because the whole idea that I need to keep putting forth, the whole idea of this video is that we have internal sensation, and it's our internal sensation that actually eventually results in a certain action, right? So you can say that sensation, feeling, then action. So the general idea is that the sensation and feeling part, or us discussing the idea of feelings, more or less is limited to just sensation and feeling. The action is like whatever, right? You know, whatever the action is doesn't really matter. What really matters is sensation and feeling. And the thing that I want to help people understand is, okay, how does this sensation and feeling works? Going back to what I said in the start, right? How does this link to power? You can say that in order for somebody to be deemed to be more powerful, or one of the perception of power is how much sensation can I trigger in you. So you can say that sensation works both ways. Sensation at this level can be a negative one or a positive one. What is a negative sensation? If I slap you across your face, you feel pain, right? You can say that you feel the pain because of the physical harm, right? Your cells, to a certain extent, is dying damage on your face, and that sense triggers of danger to your physical body. But you can also say that there's also a level of emotional pain, right? It's the pain from pride, for example, right? You know, you feel like you lose a certain amount of ego and pride because someone is able to hit you over the face. And again, even if you process the idea, right, how do you know that it's humiliating for somebody to be hit in the face? If you have a robot and you smack the robot across the face, the robot will feel nothing. The robot will be like, you know, oh wow, my head's position has shifted towards this direction, and what I need to do is that I need to shift it back to the normal position. That's what a robot would do, right? Why is it an animal, when being smacked, is going to see it as a humiliating thing? What does humiliation actually mean? Humiliation actually means that this person is able to do a certain sensation, create a certain sensation in us with impunity, right? Ideally, you can say that it goes so much deeper in the sense of there's so many other examples, right? If I'm a lion and I'm able to pounce and pin you down and eat you, then you can say that I have all the control in the world. I have control over you to a certain extent, right? And because I have that control over you, when you are in the presence of me, you should feel fear because of what I potentially can do to you. And again, we're going into sensation, right? So of course, I need to also give an example of positive sensation. Positive sensation is just the idea of, well, we really want something. If you look at the ice cream, you're like, you know, wow, it triggers a certain amount of feelings in you, and you want to eat the ice cream. You don't understand that's what you want yet, right? The initial sensation is just that look at ice cream, feel certain emotion, right? Look at pretty girl, feel certain emotion. And for girls, like, you know, look at good looking guys, feel certain emotion, right? It's only when we cross over towards the subconscious, then, well, we explain it of like, wow, oh, because I'm hungry, therefore I look at the ice cream that I got the emotion. Then I'm feeling infatuated with the person, or in other words, I'm feeling horny. That's why when I look at this good looking person, then I feel certain things. But the whole idea is that the sensation is just negative and positive, right? And if you want to be seen to be powerful, one of the ways that you can do is that I can instill certain sensation in you. Going back to the lion, if you look at me, instantly what you get is negative sensation. I'm more powerful than you. Without doing anything, right? This is not even the action itself, because we are not talking about thinking, me actually pouncing and then killing you. It's just the perception of I could if I want to, that instantly when you look at me, you associate me with danger. And you can say that to a certain extent, attraction works the same way, right? You look at a girl, you get that certain emotion. So this is where I'm about to share some patterns or rules. You can say that, well, rules are actually established from patterns. And you can say rule number 1 is that if I can trigger sensation in you, I am more powerful. And rule number 2 is going to be triggering sensation in another person feels good. Triggering sensation in another person feels good, right? Which is, again, this is why girls would lead you on. Not just girls, guys also lead girls on as well, right? The person, why an attractive person would lead another person on. Of course, whenever we think about that, right, we always think in terms of a selfish way. We think in terms of like, well, why is this girl trying to play with my feelings? She's so cruel. Couldn't she just tell me that like I'm not interested in you, so that I can move on? We always think in a very selfish way, right? How does this affect me, and myself? But the whole idea of at a deep level is that triggering sensation in another person feels good. This is why the girl is leading you on, right? Not because, she consciously want to plot your downfall. It's because leading you on feels good to her, and therefore she continues to do it, right? Leading you on is equivalent to her eating ice cream. Telling her not to lead you on is telling her that like you should not enjoy ice cream. Then you can say that this is where we go more into the thinking part of it, right? The morality of like, should we do this, should we not do this? But again, like, this is some other issues down the line. This is just how the pattern of human being works at a deeper level, right? And triggering sensation, even if it's negative, also feels good. You can say that the whole idea of why people bully, right? Why is it that, and I don't think bullying is a human concept. I'm pretty sure that in the animal world, animals also bully each other. Reason being is that it feels good for me to be able to trigger a sensation in you. If I trigger fear, if I trigger anything whatsoever, I feel amazing, right? Of course, you can say that the level of happiness that I feel about this is dependent on the trait of sadism. And you can say that the greater my trait of sadism, the more sadistic I am, the greater the pleasure that I feel from triggering a sensation in another person. Even if we are separating negative and positive one. Because guess what? Even positive sensation is to a certain extent negative. Because if you trigger a positive sensation, so for example, if let's say you are attractive to this particular person and you don't return the affection, you can say that not returning the affection is actually causing a certain level of pain. Make sense? So at this level, one thing that I forgot to touch about when it comes down to sensation, right, is that another way that we measure sensation is through the idea of focus. The things that we pay attention to. And you can say that if me, how do I understand that I have control over your sensation? Is that I control your focus. So how do I even give an example of this, right? Maybe I give the example of a pretty girl. If a pretty girl were to walk past and you feel like you can't keep your eyes off her, you can say that she have controlled your sensation because she have controlled your focus. You can't help but pay attention to her. And the same thing as if let's say right now somebody have a gun pointed at you, and if they pull the trigger, you are going to die. So this threat to your survival have triggered the deepest part of your brain, right, which is the reptilian brain of survival. Then you can say that it will stop all mental processes. You don't think about tomorrow, you don't think about 1 hour, you don't think about what should I eat for dinner, because dinner might not come. You would stop all your internal processes and fully focus on the person who's pointing the gun at you. You are even focusing to a certain level of like how much this person shakes, right? Because you want to see how trigger happy this person is, right? If this person is very nervous, you can say that anything might set this person off to pull the trigger and cause you to die. But the whole idea of if I can control your focus and control what you pay attention to, going back to the idea of rule 2, I will be perceived to be more powerful than you. And again, this is also interchangeable to attraction. Because all of this works both for attraction and both for power, it's one of the way that I can actually explain why power and attraction is actually working on the same realm. Other than the fact that power and attraction, because they work on the idea of feelings, they are quite similar. But also this is one of the ways for me to explain, right? If a girl can hold your attention when you are in class and you can't focus on what you are supposed to be focusing on because all you're thinking about is this girl and the life that you'll have with her, and like, all the fun memories that you'll have, fake arguments with this person and then bonding over it in the future. If you're thinking about all these things instead of the things that you should be focusing in life, then you can say that she has certain control over you. So what is rule number 3? Rule number 3 to a certain extent is also related to rule number 4, right? Because rule number 3 is in some ways related to rule number 2 because it's another way of looking at rule number 2. Which is, if you have no power over me, if you have no power over my sensation, I am deemed to be powerful, right? Oh wow, the words is really large. What is the size that I put? Maybe it was like 24. No, it's not 24. It's 32 if I remember correct. There's no 32, 36. Okay. If you can't control my sensation, I am seen to be powerful. Right? This is the whole idea of if somebody have a gun to your head. Someone have a gun, and you can say that logically speaking, how we are able to read another person is based on how we read ourselves. If somebody points a gun to me, I would be scared because I could die. I am not bulletproof. I am only human, right? So therefore, it makes sense that if I point a gun to somebody's head, then it should trigger the same amount of fear in another person, right? But if this person is like, kind of like, yeah, whatever, I don't really feel a certain amount of threat, this would trigger the idea of, in this person's head, that the other person is powerful. This other person is more powerful, therefore is not afraid. Although the context that he sees is that me pointing a gun to this person and this person not reacting, in actual fact, what the subconscious mind sees is that I am a rabbit, and then this person is a lion. Right? This person is a large lion, much larger than myself. And what I'm basically is doing empty threats to the lion. I'm telling the lion, I'm gonna kill you if you don't do this. And the lion will be like, yeah, whatever. This is what your subconscious sees because that's the only thing that makes sense, right? Because you can say that if the roles is reversed and me with the gun is that I am the lion right now, I'm the most powerful, I have the power over life and death, then what you'll be doing is that you are going to show signs of fear. Your sensation is going to move into your subconscious, and your subconscious is going to go into fear, and it's through this fear that I see plastered on your face, most likely with the facial expression of this, right? This is the facial expression of fear, and I notice that to a certain extent, and because I'm able to cause that level of fear in you, I see more powerful. But because this is not the case, and I'm unable to trigger this fear in you, for some reason, there must be a reason why you're not afraid. One is that I am seeing this whole context wrong. You are not the prey in this example, right? Even though I have the gun and I'm pointing at you, the relation should be I'm the predator, you're the prey. That's not in actual fact what happens. It is as if that you have some knowledge that I do not have that actually paints this example or this context in a more real way than I do. What do I actually mean by that? That's a very convoluted sentence. Simple way is that I see this scenario as I'm the predator, you are the prey, because I have limited knowledge. And because you have a broader knowledge and you have more knowledge in that example, in the sense of you actually know what the real context is, therefore you're not afraid. So for example, if let's say the person that I point a gun to is bulletproof, if I fire the gun, this is going to bounce off the person because this person maybe is Superman, right? So you can say that Superman in that example is not going to be afraid of the gun. Because like if you pull the trigger, nothing is going to happen to me. And you can even say that in that example, right, if I pull the trigger, it's equivalent to this rabbit pouncing on the lion. You can say that in this current example is that the lion doesn't want to kill the rabbit yet. The lion is just like, wow, you're being so bothersome to me, but like, why do I want to move my muscle to actually try to kill you? Because if I kill you and eat you, you're not even going to be worth the energy that I have spent to actually kill you. I actually waste more energy. Therefore, right now, the best thing that I can do is ignore you. So you can say that the ability to ignore another person is something that triggers the whole idea of this person being more powerful, which, by the way, I actually have prepared some videos that can contextualize that to a certain extent, right? But the whole idea is that me pulling the trigger is going to be equivalent to the rabbit pouncing at a lion. So now you can say that not only are you annoying right now, you have actually shifted my annoyance, you have lifted my annoyance level, because previously I can ignore you. But now you are actively this what's the thing inconvenience me. You have actively inconvenienced me. And because of that, now from not focusing on you, congratulations, you have my full attention. Right? You can say that the rabbit at that part, I've triggered a certain amount of sensation and focus on the lion. Right? Therefore I feel good. This is where rule 2 is kind of a question mark, right? Because you can say that there's certain example of if you really trigger the full attention of a bear, you don't really feel more powerful than a bear, right? You can say that it's a bad thing to trigger the full attention of the bear. If you are camping, the bear leaves you alone, then whatever. But if you throw a rock at the bear, then now the bear is, instead of just minding its own business, is now fully focusing on you and is preparing to kill you. Then you can say that, well, I don't really feel that powerful in that situation, right? You can even say that you feel a huge level of fear, and therefore because this bear is able to trigger the sensation in you, then, well, in some sense you feel threatened. Which, by the way, I better show like the context of should I show that first? Probably later. But the rule number 4 is focus is threatening. So this focus is threatening is something that is actually very difficult for conscious mind to understand, because this is something that animals in general is able to conceptualize better than human beings. Because human being is, as social creature, we have to focus and interact with each other on a daily basis. You can even say that this is trained in us when we're younger. If our parents is scolding us, the whole idea is that we're supposed to actually focus on that. We're not supposed to lose focus on that, right? Because it's rude. We are going to get our ass beaten even harder for not paying attention when we're being scolded. And again, when we're in school, the whole idea is that, like, yeah, you're supposed to pay attention, right? So it's the whole idea of shifting your focus. And therefore, when we try to attract another person and we try to do something that is positive, we think that focus is actually a good thing. Focus for animals is threatening. This goes to the example where I say that if a bear right now is looking at you menacingly because you threw a rock at it, then guess what? You are going to be scared. Why? Because the bear, you now have the full attention of the bear. Right? Congratulations. Like, the bear is not thinking in terms of like, what should I eat later for dinner? The whole idea is that, okay, this person pissed me off. I think I'm going to eat this person for dinner. And that is the only thought process in this bear. Focus is threatening. And you can say that the level of power is how much I can stare and focus on you without you flinching. So if let's say 2 person would have a staring contest, right? And we can see this from an example, if 2 person is staring at each other before they're about to fight, whoever were to flinch, then we know the idea is that, okay, this person is probably weaker than me. Because being stared at, being focused on is scary. Because usually the person being focused on is the prey. The predator is going to look at the prey at the level of focus that the prey is not going to return. Because you can say that if the prey were to stare at the predator, when the predator stares at the prey, To an animal, it's a issuance of challenge. Therefore, you can say that when two persons is about to fight, they get into each other's face, they stare at each other. That staring is a challenge. Is a challenge when it comes down to the human animal or animals in general, which is why prey in general, they do not meet the eyes of the predator. If you look in terms of how does a bully knows that he has full control over somebody that he's bullying, is how much this other person is able to look him in the eyes. Because if I'm looking you in the eyes, I'm basically saying it's the equivalence of you pointing a gun to me and me saying that I'm not scared. Because if I'm scared, fear would cause me to actually shift my focus away. So if you want to actually use this in practicality, right? You want to actually use this to incorporate certain aspects of your life, you have to understand that to a certain extent, when it comes down to things that is emotional in nature, be it intimidation or attraction, where you put your focus is going to tell this person certain information. If you are unable to meet the eyes of the girl, the pretty girl, then you can say that, well, the pretty girl knows that she has all the control in the interaction. It's not even a relationship, right? It's just an interaction. And then you can say that, well, obviously it does indicate that you are not the level of dominance, right? Dominance, I don't mean actually controlling the girl. What I mean is that how much influence you have in your environment. Because you can say that why wouldn't somebody want another person who have good control of his environment? Be it I have money, because I have money, I have options. Be it I have social status, so that when I talk, people listen, that I'm able to control people to a certain extent. Why wouldn't a girl want that guy instead of the guy that is going to get pushed around by everybody? Why would a girl be with a guy that is going to flinch and run away at any form of challenge? Then you can say that, well, what if it's a life and death situation, and then now you need your guy to protect you, and then your guy runs away first. Hopefully you run behind him, right? So again, the whole idea behind this is that at the end of the day, it's always a measuring of power. Even in the example of if you flinch when meeting the eyes or focus of another person, then you can say that, well, you have indicated to this person, in the example that I'm sharing is a guy girl, you have indicated to this girl that you are not the guy that she could fall in love with. Because by and large, people like to fall in love with somebody who is either equal in power or somebody who is slightly more powerful than them. And maybe at this junction I should share that there's different aspects of power. And for two persons to fall in love with each other, it can be a true statement that they think both of each other is more powerful than themselves. So if, for example, if let's say I'm somebody who is only seeing the world through thinking, I have really strong computational power, right? I'm smarter than people, I'm able to understand things, I have really high IQ, then you can say that in that sense, I see myself and my strength to a certain extent to be intellectual power. But there's an aspect that I might not be as good at. I might not be as good socially, right? I might not be able to know, I do not know too much about emotional intelligence. And a girl that is able to interact with people seamlessly because she understands emotional intelligence, then you can say that even if I have higher IQ than her, I would see her as more powerful than me because she have higher EQ. And if she were to see me as more powerful because I have higher IQ, then you can say that that's a situation where both person love each other because they see each other as more powerful. And I think that this is something that I more or less shared quite abstractly about when it comes down to how attraction works, when we actually value each other in a number. So if I value you and your number is 1002, because I factor in your IQ and you think that my number is 1002 because you factor in my EQ, then you can say that we can both see each other as more valuable than ourselves and still love each other the same, if it makes sense. Of course, I'm detouring, right? But the whole idea is that this is going to be the last point, which is being focused or having somebody pays attention to us is scary, right? And the way that I can explain in this, I can give example, but probably it's easier to understand if I were to give context. And this is, by the way, one of the way that I actually learn about all these things is for me to see something that is fictional or even something that happened in life and draw lessons from it. So in this video, what I'm going to share and what I want people to pay attention to is look at how the person with the gun interact with the person without the gun, right? The example that I give previously is that if somebody have a gun to your head, then you should be scared. And you can say that if this person reacted in that way, then the interaction is actually going to be very smooth. So in actual fact, I'm going to play the video and then you're going to see like what happens, right?
Hands on your head.
No, that's the new IBM Selectric.
Put your hands on your head.
Change the print type in 5 seconds.
Shut
Just
up!
Pop out the ball.
Put your hands on your head. Put your hands.
You know, he's got over 200 checks here. A
Hands
ton of indie
on
ink,
your head.
Drafting. He even has little payroll envelopes
Put it down.
addressed to himself. From
Put it down. Drop it.
Relax. You're late. All right.
Okay, so the whole idea or the thing that you should actually learn from that example, right, is that what we can draw from that video is the person with the gun might think that he has more power because I have gun, I have control over life and death. But if the other person doesn't react to it, then you can say that from what we saw, right, it actually brings about a certain level of fear in this person with the gun, right? You know, this can be seen as him.
No, that's the new IBM
knocking over things.
Selectric.
Put your hands on your head. Hands on your
Pop out the ball.
Put your hands on your head.
Right, him physically backing off, although he has the power. So this goes on the realm of, well, if I can't intimidate you, there must be some hidden knowledge that you have that is going to be the case. So this is an example when it comes down to negative example. Now I'm going to show you something that's very interesting, right? And in this context, it's going to be the whole idea of kabadon. So for people who don't know what kabadon is, right, is the idea of I think this is a very Japanese trope. Whereas if this is a war, well, this is actually a very bad way for me to draw a room. But think about it this way, right? A shorter girl is backed against the wall, and then like a taller guy is. The whole idea is that he puts the arm over the girl, right? Probably I should actually put up a picture of it, but if you want to know what it looks like, you know, you go Google kabadon by yourself. The whole idea of this is that it's supposed to be a romantic thing, right? Then there is also something that to a certain extent cosplayers, in this example is a cosplayer, where it shows that a girl doing this to a guy. And the whole idea of the whole kabadon, if I have to evaluate the internal process of what happens, is actually a very good example of sensation. Because you can say that this person feels a certain amount of sensation, but they can't explain what this sensation is yet. But in order for them to contextualize, they'll most likely contextualize it as like, you know, oh, I must be feeling this way because I like this girl. But it could be equally that you feel this girl to be threatening. So just look at this example, right? And focus on the idea of where the focus is, right? Who is able to look each other in the eyes? And if I'm able to look at you and you're unable to look at me, then therefore I have more power. So you can even say that in that example, right? The girl understands that she have more power, mainly because this guy can't focus on him. Then, of course, if you read body language, you can also see the body language of fear, right? You know, the large eyes on that guy's face, and that's going to indicate that she has power. And another aspect of power, by the way, is that she's able to freely shift his head. The whole idea is that if I have the capability to physically move you, then I have power. Even in the previous example where the guy with the gun pointing at somebody, and then him backing off and hitting the cart behind him, is a sign of power, because although I do not physically touch and move you away, my presence have caused you to shift a certain extent. So in any case, you can even say that although what we see is this girl with the guy and everything like this, right? This is what we see. In actual fact, this context is equivalent to this. Now you can say that, okay, what's the difference between the previous one? The previous one is seen from the example of love and affection, but this is from the example of a threat. A threat, right? Love and a threat is almost the same thing. I'll go as far to say that love and threat is the same thing. Reason being is that I think I've gone through this previously, which is if a girl were to reject us, rejection to a social animal is equivalent to death, being ostracized from the group. But of course, you can also explain it from the perspective of sensation as well, right? So if let's say you are able to trigger the same sensation in me, because sensation, again, it could be positive, negative. Although it's positive or negative, by the way, at the level of sensation, we feel is sensation. We don't even know if it's positive sensation or negative sensation. We can do backwards inference that, okay, maybe initially it was negative sensation, but at the level where the sensation comes about, we can't even determine if it's positive or negative. All we know that it's a binary thing. Is there sensation? Is there no sensation? And because you can say that the same sensation controls the level of threat, like a lion versus a rabbit, the opposite is also the same thing. Whereas when it comes down to a girl interacting with a guy. So in any case, I know that I always say this that like my videos tend to be very confusing. Maybe because, again, to a certain extent, you can say that psychology in itself is, some of it is quite abstract, right? The conscious things such as like its conscious effect, I'm pretty sure if I were to explain NLP, where it's something which is cause and effect, you do certain action, you get certain results, it's going to be easier to explain. To a certain extent, you can say that mirroring and sense of importance works like this, right? I explain mirroring, sense of importance, you don't have to know the internal process in order to understand what's going on. You just do X and then Y is going to get the results. But again, when it comes down to sensation, it's a little bit confusing, especially when it's things that I do impromptu, right? I try to figure out things as I do the video itself. But in any case, if there's any confusion on this, do let me know, right? Let me know your queries on this, because who knows, your query may be a potential blind spot that could change my mind. Because at the end of the day, the way that I see is that when I'm doing all these videos, when I'm trying to think of all these concepts, me myself is also limited based on the understanding that I have, and there might potentially be another perspective that I haven't considered that is going to eventually maybe change one of the rules that I mentioned, or even add a new rule. Who knows? But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully I see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.